Welcome to What If I Don't Like It? I'm your host, KT Baldessaro, and today we'll be talking with writer, director, and all-around cinephile Jacob Davison about the 1985 Japanese comedy Western, Tampopo. Welcome to episode 15. Today we're going to talk about a film from 1985 called Tampopo. It's from Japan. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you've seen it and you really, really love it. Maybe you've never heard of it at all. In this particular case, we have a friend of a friend on the show, Jacob Davison, who is a friend of Jared Skolnick, who you might know from our Goonies episode, who is a close friend of mine. I feel like I keep hearing about all the awesome work that Jacob does, and honestly, it is really great, and I wanted to get to meet him and have him on the show to talk about something. So when he said that he hadn't seen Tampopo yet, I was curious why. Big cinephile, is out in LA, and even admits there were plenty of times in which the place that he worked or places near him that were doing festivals had played Tampopo, and he just never really got around to it. Not out of any kind of malice, it just didn't really reach out to him. And I think this is definitely a case of perhaps boiling down something that is really multidimensional and very rich into just like an elevator pitch. So basically just saying, Tampopo is a noodle western, which is fun to say because we were playing with the idea of spaghetti western saying noodle western, about making really good ramen. And yes, that's true at the very base of this film. This is about making really good ramen. But much like soup, which is flavorful and dimensional and has a lot of things brought into it, Tampopo has levels. It has different things that are incredibly whimsical, cinematic. This is not just a love letter to food, although it definitely is a love letter to food and foodies and all the different ways in which food is part of the human experience. It is the first film to feature a specific food stylist role, because when you're stressing showing a perfect bowl of soup, you better have somebody whose job it is to make sure that perfection is being achieved. Also, you gotta eat this. A lot of the actors are eating what is being shown so beautifully, so in order to make stuff that looks good and is still edible, that's quite the task. And that's kind of part of why I thought, well, this will be a great film for Jacob to see. He's a filmmaker. He would really appreciate all of the nuance and all of the tangential stories that are not often discussed. So this will be a fun thing for him to get to see, although I will admit that might be too experimental and maybe too disjointed for him to like, so I'm going on a limb here. If you're not too familiar with Jacob's work, please take a look at the liner notes. We're going to talk about this on the show, obviously, but if you go right to the liner notes, you can go directly to his YouTube channel, Matinee 5 Productions, where all of the shorts from Just Scare Me. He's also part of the Just Scare Me collective, which I did round 23 of just before. You can still go see my 5-minute film, We Have Ghosts at Home, also in the liner notes on my YouTube channel, Movie Runtime. But this YouTube channel is Matinee 5 Productions. That's in the liner notes too. We talk about The Living Wake, 8, and The Blue Swatting of the Mahogany Fly. Those are really standout ones. They're all great. Go check them all out. See that in the liner notes. Want to know more about Jacob? Have more of him in your life with podcasts? You can hear his voice on his own 2 podcasts, Eye on Horror with iHorror.com. That features not only him, but James J. Edwards and Jonathan Correia, and they talk about all things horror. It's really kind of more of a hangout show. Super fun. A lot of episodes. You can go check those out. That's in the liner notes as well. And then the Hallo-Rewind Podcast, and I have the links for Apple Podcasts and Spotify podcasts on that. And here's their little tagline for it. What's your favorite Halloween special? That certain program that fills your heart with October nostalgia? Well, pop in your VHS tape and press play because the Hallo-Rewind Podcast is here to take a deep dive into your favorite autumn episodes and spooky TV specials. Each week we are joined by a guest to break down their personal selection. So come along for year-round tricks and treats because for some of us, every day is Halloween. You could also find him on Instagram, Twitter, and Letterboxd. This is a great Letterboxd account to follow. Lots of great thoughtful reviews. Also rewatches stuff and re-reviews it to keep checking in on the quality of that stuff. You, of course, can always find me on YouTube or TikTok at Movie Runtime. I'll be reviewing stuff, a lot of streaming stuff that's coming out right now. I'm also doing a little giveaway that's going until the 6th. I've started practicing using a digital drawing pen, which is something I've never done before. I know, I'm really coming to the time slowly. But in doing so, I need more faces to practice on. So far, I've done almost everyone from the Movie Night Extravaganza crew. I just have J. Andy World left to do. I've done Conan, I've done Christina, and I've done Forrest. I've also done Matt Strackman of The Letter Hack. And then I've done my friend Taylor from Taylor Complains, Taylor Perez. And if you haven't followed any of those fantastic people, you really should. And you can find them by following me. It's all about me, guys. No, I mean, you can just... I constantly share Taylor's stuff on Instagram and TikTok, so you'll see him in my stories, you'll see him in my reposts. But if you want more of the Movie Night Extravaganza crew than you're currently getting, I'll be on this coming Friday, the 5th, just after the 4th of July. That's a special Friday episode because we'll be joined by Renee Roon of the Night Shift podcast. She's down in Australia, so the timing works where it's very early in the morning for her and very late for us. We're going to talk about the currently released in theaters Yorgos Lanthimos film Kinds of Kindness, starring Emma Stone. Obviously, this is going to be divisive. This is an experimental director, but we're all really excited. I'm super excited. I'm going to see it in a couple of days, and then we'll be talking about it live. You can always join us live and be part of the conversation on YouTube, or listen to it archived if you don't have the time. You can't chime in and be part of the conversation, but you can still listen to that live. All the streams get archived and will be available for you to watch on their specific YouTube, which is very easy to find. It's Movie Night Extravaganza, and it's in the links. That's all the blabbering I'm going to do for now. We're going to get in there, and we're going to talk about Tampopo, a fantastic film that will undoubtedly make you hungry.
この場合、大切なことは決して音を立てないことです。絶対に音を立ててはいけません。音を立てないためには、まず自分が立てている音に耳を澄ますこと。案外、自分が音を立てていることに気がつかない人が多いのですよ。ではちょっとやってみましょう。耳を澄ませてください。
Welcome to episode 15. We are covering the 1986 film Tampopo, and we have director and writer Jacob Davison with us here today.
Happy to be here, KT.
Happy to have you here. You are a close friend of mine, Jared Skolnick, who I've worked with extensively, but this is kind of the first time that we're meeting, so it's exciting for me.
It's exciting for me too. I saw that he was on one of your episodes recently, and I appreciate the offer to come on the show myself.
Absolutely. Yeah, we had him watch Goonies, which I feel like I can't even believe I didn't know he hadn't seen it.
Yeah, that's definitely a surprise, but the way I see it is, we're not all Leonard Maltin. We can't all see every movie.
100%. And I think that he wanted to exist in a zone where he could keep telling people he hadn't seen it in case he hated it, because so many people wanted to tell him, well, you must love Goonies because it's Spielberg and it's kids and it's the 80s and it's adventure and that's what you're all about. And he's like, don't put me in a box.
Yeah, no, he did say that the kind of 80s fawning over it was something that kind of dispelled him away from the movie for the longest time, which I get because it is just the peak 80s film.
Mm-hmm. And when you ask the question, well, who hurt you? The answer is Stranger Things. Stranger Things messed poor Jared up that he didn't even want to try it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And he wound up liking it, so it wound up being okay in the long run.
True. And I was also going to say, funny enough, I just saw Jared last night.
Oh, yeah. How's he doing?
He's doing well. He just got back from the East Coast, and we went to a Hong Kong double feature at the New Beverly. We saw these two pretty out there kind of fantasy action horror hybrid films, A
Ooh.
Tale from the East and The Occupant.
How were they? Sounds interesting.
They were fun. Tale from the
Mhm,
East was definitely the wackier one. It's like
mhm,
it had time. It had like uh warriors from the past awakening in then modern Hong Kong, and there were fights. There was musical sequences. There was a battle at a water park, and then The
mhm.
Occupant was kind of more of a supernatural horror movie from Ronnie Yu, who did Freddy vs. Jason, and it starred Chow Yun Fat.
Oh.
And it did have a lot of gags, like this nerd getting thrown out of a window repeatedly, and a spooky ghost that moved tables, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'd say overall we had a fun time.
That's awesome. I have to say, I saw Jared when he was here, and he always regales me with all of the things that are going on where you guys are and all the different stuff that you get to go to. So I'm horrifically jealous. There's one that he was telling me about where it's all sad movies and then it ends with Paddington 2.
Oh, Bleak Week, yes. That's a block of films that the American Cinematheque does every year where they play a week of the most despair-inducing movies imaginable, and then they do what they call the Paddington Chaser, where they play Paddington 1 and 2 afterward.
Wait, so you work for them as well, don't you?
That is true. I've been working for the Cinematheque since about November 2016.
Oh, wow, that's a good long time. You're almost coming up on a decade. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, I really like what the Cinematheque does and what the organization stands for. Plus, we get to show a lot of really cool movies and have great guests, and I get to see a lot of movies for free, so that's always a plus.
Definitely in our industry, that is a plus. What do they stand for and do? Can you tell me a little bit more about them? I've heard you and Jared tell me about all the great events that they do, but I don't really know them as an entity.
Well, they're a nonprofit organization that specializes in film exhibition and archiving.
Mhm.
They do all sorts of series, and they work with all kinds of directors, mostly repertory, but with a lot of emphasis on independent cinema.
Mm.
And they operate out of three theaters mainly: the Aero Theater in Santa Monica, where I work, and the Los Feliz Theater. In the Los Feliz 3 theater in Los Feliz,
Mhm.
and the historic Egyptian theater in Hollywood
Oh,
on Hollywood Boulevard,
of
which
course.
recently reopened after some renovations and is in a co-ownership with Netflix.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, it was quite a saga.
Wow. Yeah. Maybe they should make a movie about it.
That'd be ironic. Um, but yeah, no, I just really like what the Cinematheque does, and
Mhm,
it's a great day job for somebody like myself who's trying to make it as a filmmaker and writer.
mhm.
So yeah, no, I just stuck with it.
That's pretty awesome. I mean, who doesn't know of that particular the Egyptian theater? Who isn't familiar with that as far as iconic places on earth? I think there's that and the Draft House as far as like movie theaters you can think of with positive connotation.
Oh yes, yeah, no, I'd say that the Cinematheque has a very positive reputation, especially with all the series and uh,
Mhm,
exhibitions that they do and premieres. Like I'd mentioned before, with Bleak Week, and
mhm.
next month is Super 70s month, so we're doing almost entirely all movies on 70 millimeter, and that's always a huge draw. And every year is Beyond Fest in the fall, which is one of my favorite film festivals, especially in genre. So it has a lot to offer.
That's awesome. And what do you do for them particularly?
Oh, I'm just staff. Like I help
Mhm,
run the day operations at the Arrow. So just opening, closing the theater, that type of stuff.
mhm,
Running the concession stand.
mhm,
Uh, I don't really get to work too much behind the scenes or
mhm.
with programming or anything, but it's just nice to be there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I will definitely include a link to this in the liner notes as well in case people want to get involved. Every non for profit can always use donations, see what's
Yeah,
playing, get involved in tickets for the next month on that 70 millimeter. That sounds so cool.
yeah, and I always recommend people sign up for a membership if you live in Los Angeles because it gets you discount tickets and other bonuses.
Absolutely.
So just check it out.
Yeah, great way to support the arts and save a little money. That's a freaking win-win right there.
Yeah.
I love that. That's just so that's like finding your people to know that that's going on somewhere. Truly awesome. And in fact, that's kind of how I came to circle back and know the two of you as an entity because you have this really cool thing going on around you called Just Scare Me.
Oh, yes, that's true. It's a film collective where basically we get a 2-month period to come together and make a short horror, just scary related short film. And it's a community effort, it's a team effort. We ask each other for favors all the time, which is why you can see the same actors and crew across several different shorts within a single block.
It's kind of awesome.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I've been doing it for years. And
Mhm.
it's been the most productive I've ever been. I've made over a dozen short films in the last couple years for them.
Absolutely. And of course, the liner notes for this will contain links to all of these kinds of films, places that you can find Jared's work, the Just Scare Me Collective as well. I participated as well in the last round, and I regret not being able to make it out there. I'm on the East Coast, and I just recently had surgery, so it wasn't possible, but I intend
Mm.
to in the future because of the community and all the fun that it looks like you guys are having. And I think that that is so incredibly present in your last one that you did for round 23.
Oh yeah, yeah. My Living Wake. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that one looks hilarious, and that was actually filmed inside Blast from the Past, which is the comic book shop that they show all the shorts in.
Exactly. Yes.
Was that how much of that was written, and how much of that was the glorious improvisation of those fellow filmmakers?
It was what they wrote.
Mhm,
Basically, my premise was I decided to do a living wake for my birthday this year, like Albert Brooks in that one
mhm,
episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm. So I just told everybody, I was going to do a living wake. So come over. If you want to eulogize me, just basically imagine I'm dead and say what you would say at my funeral.
mhm.
And a lot of people are just dunking on me when I'm dead.
I know, they are. They are. I especially loved Jared's, decision to double dunk on you and also the Tesla
It's
Cybertruck. Like, why not 2 birds, 1 stone?
exactly. Although I sincerely doubt my last words will be, "Don't blame Elon."
Ooh, ooh, that's tempting the gods of fate to somehow make that your "this pretzel
Oh,
is making me
jeez.
salt this pretzel is, kinda salty," where you're like, "Oh, man, I guess I do have to deliver. It wasn't Elon's fault."
I doubt that.
I doubt well,
But no, it was a lot of fun, and it was all, from a place of affection. And
Mhm,
I'm glad I got to do my own piece at the end. Just
mhm,
kind of a rebuttal,
mhm.
and just in general, just showing my appreciation for my friends, and happy that so many people showed up to give me well wishing on my birthday
Absolutely.
while I was inside of a nylon coffin.
That you didn't entirely fit in, which wasn't
Yes.
planned, but did
No.
wind up working very well.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I knew it was a little bit smaller than I should have gotten. Although also it was more comfortable to bend my knees like that. So, if I was just laying down on the table, I feel like
Mm,
it would have gotten stiff. So,
mm.
yeah, I was fine with that. And like I was wearing an airplane neck pillow.
Mhm.
So it's not exactly like I was hiding the fact that I was still alive.
Although, they send people, into death with many things in case you needed to be comfortable in the afterlife, we can include an airplane pillow in there for you, 2 coins on your eyes, and an airplane pillow. Of the Just Scare Me films that you have done, which one would you say is your favorite or even the one that you're the most proud of? Like, say you wanted somebody to go watch one of them right now, which one would you tell them to watch?
Ooh, that's a tough one. A lot of these are experimental or
Mhm,
just, having fun. One of my favorite slogans about Just Scare Me is that, it's not a competition, it's a gym, it's
mhm,
a safe environment for us to kind of work out our skills or to try new things or, just really go for the ropes. So,
mhm,
I'm not really afraid to try anything while doing
mhm.
projects under Just Scare Me. Although there are definitely more than a few projects that I'm proud of and want people to see. I think the one that comes to mind would be the trailer, the fake trailer I did called Eight.
I love that
Uh,
one.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, yes, we did that late last year, and it's basically a riff on David Fincher's Seven and a lot of those kind of crime thrillers that came out in the wake of Seven back in the late 90s, early 2000s, where instead of the seven deadly sins, it's about a killer killing a person for each night of the 8 nights of Hanukkah. And there's two Jewish detectives who are after the killer who keeps on killing people in Hanukkah related ways. Like there's a person with their eyes gouged out with dreidels, and another person is force fed latkes until they die. So, it's just one of those things.
Yeah, that one's a great one. I talked about that on my TikTok account, Movie Runtime, when I was doing a bunch of shorts, reviewing shorts to make sure that people got to see some of them. I thought that one was it was a really good example of how to take something and be fastidious.
Yeah.
It's very deep. The original Seven is so intense, and then be like one more number up, and it becomes quite funny. Any intent to make that into a feature, or is that just a fun trailer?
I've bounced the idea off of my friends a lot because it's fun to do a fake trailer because you're kind of showing the concept, but then you start to
Mhm.
think about like where you could take it from there if you actually did make it into a movie. And I feel like this has happened a lot. Like Eli Roth's Thanksgiving came out last year after they did the fake trailer for that years ago, and I mean, it's going to the bigger example, Grindhouse, because Machete from Robert Rodriguez was originally a fake trailer, and Hobo with a Shotgun was originally just a contest winning trailer for
Mhm.
Grindhouse by Jason Eisner, but that was made into a feature. So yeah, I've considered it, and I have some ideas of how to pull it off.
Nice. When you make short films, do you feel like you are usually making them with the intent to possibly flesh them out into feature? I've definitely heard a lot of discourse where people say there's no money in short films, there's no reason to make a short film. The only reason to make a short film is to, get funding for something bigger later on and kind of show proof of concept.
I feel like there's still a lot of worth in making short films. Like I said, it's a good space to be experimental or just to
Mhm.
play around with ideas. I mean, I don't put a lot of money into my own shorts, which frees me up to, just kind of do whatever. Because I did do a pretty big festival short a couple years ago that was on the circuit for a while, and we did get actual
Mhm.
funding. And I mean, yeah, it was a lot of fun, and we got to go to some interesting places. Although, yeah, I don't know if I would make it into a feature. And it was
Mhm.
the October Martyr, which was directed and produced by Robert Teamstra. It was a good way to show our work and to show what we're capable of.
Mhm.
But yeah, like I guess it's just a couple ways to go about it because you can definitely invest in trying to make something into a concept short, so you can try and make it into a feature.
Mhm.
But I also think that there's a lot of validity to, just making short films because you want to make short films or just want to have fun and show your skills.
Absolutely. I really agree with that. I think people are being hyperbolic, and I think that maybe the crowdsourcing Kickstarter crowdfunder situation where in order to put your film on there, you usually are going to film something has created this expectation that if I'm watching a short something, I'm probably watching a Kickstarter film. And you're like,
Yeah,
there are Academy Award winning short films. Okay.
that is true. And yeah, actually, I've been on the festival circuit every now and then. Like I was at Salem Horror Fest just a few
Mhm.
weeks ago, back in May.
Awesome.
And yeah, I mean, and I love the shorts blocks. It is a lot of fun to kind of see what people put together with the idea of just making a short. Although a couple of
Mhm.
them did feel like, or even they had advertisements for Kickstarters or crowdfunding
Mhm.
later. So it's fine. I get it. It's a good way to get a feature project off the ground. But at the same time, I think that
Mhm.
there still is a lot of worth in just making short films to hone your skills or to just tell a story that fits within those confines, because not every idea can make the jump from short film to feature. Sometimes an idea is just
Mhm.
only as good as its length, and levity is better than trying to go for a full feature.
I absolutely agree, especially with the bloat in film times right now where most films are going for like almost 2 hours. I can't count on my hands and feet how many films I've seen that were shorts that got into features where it was just like, no, that was too long. You had a
Yeah.
great premise, you nailed it, and you got out. And this is a bit of a slog, and it's sad to see that. Definitely. So all these films that we're discussing, I know I'm definitely going to include links directly to them in the liner notes, but you have a YouTube channel where people could go and really just find all the stuff they need to see about your content. Is that correct?
That is correct. I have a YouTube channel called Matinee 5 Productions. It's where I post all my Just Scare Me shorts and a few other odds and ends of stuff that I've done. Most recently, I posted my living wake birthday party,
Yep. Yep.
and also another eulogy from a friend from the East Coast who had sent one in.
Oh, that's nice.
So yeah, no, I do have some material on there. The October Barter is not available yet publicly, but when it is, I will definitely be posting it about it.
So that's a keep your eyes peeled for that one. That's very cool. Of your films that are on your YouTube channel, we've shouted out 8. We've shouted out the eulogy death roast. Any other ones you want to make sure people take a quick look at, or just make them get lost in the sauce?
Well, I'd say probably one of my other favorites, or one that I'd like to highlight, is the blue swatting of the mahogany fly, which I did as kind of an homage and parody to giallo movies, Italian horror movies. It's a fake opening to a fake Italian horror movie, and if you're familiar with the subgenre, then I think you'll be familiar with the kind of tropes and setups that we have in it. So yeah, I'm very happy with that one, and it got a very positive response when we played it at screenings like at Just Scare Me, and we also played it at another event called the Halloween Mixtape. So yeah, if, I would recommend anything else that would definitely be high up there.
Definitely. I'm having a surreal experience, which is that Jared sent that to me before I really knew who you were. So I've
Oh.
definitely seen it, and I distinctly remember it, and now I'm having "Oh my god, that was that guy," because it was very good. I very much I mean, I love that genre, and I really enjoyed that short, so it's freaking hilarious.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, no, Jared's helped me on the majority of my projects, so I'm happy that he's been sharing it with friends like that, and also happy to hear that you like that one in particular.
Yeah, I am such a big fan of the Italian horror genre. I hold it so dear to my heart. As like a weird 13-year-old kid when I first found it, I think that's really the core of me being like, I want to make movies. To get to see that joy, it was a good homage piece. I definitely said I'm going to send it to my friend Renee, who's in Australia, who I know who loves it, who loves that kind of genre stuff, because I think she'll enjoy it too.
Cool, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I only really discovered Italian horror not too long ago, or at least within the last decade. Before that, not wasn't really as familiar with a lot of them, but it's definitely grown on me and has become since one of my favorite subgenres in horror. In fact, back on the Cinematheque, like a subgroup Cinemac Void, which does genre screenings every January, they do a thing called January Giallo, where they show Giallo movies every month.
That is
Well, all
awesome.
month in January.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh man, you guys, why do I live on the East Coast? There's so many reasons why, but it just makes it so hard because I want to watch all this shit you guys are talking about. Inconvenient.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes it worth living out here.
Yeah, that and I guess he says it's a dry heat, so it's not so bad.
Oh yeah, no, that is a plus.
So I'm also curious. I know that you're on my podcast, but you also have a podcast, work on podcasts, exist in the podcast world.
Yes, I've got two podcasts. The one I've been working on the longest, or rather co-hosting the longest, has been the Eye on Horror podcast with ihorror.com, along with co-hosts Jonathan Manuel Correia and James J. Edwards. It's more of a casual kind of conversational horror podcast where we just kind of talk about a lot of the stuff that we've
Mhm.
been watching, and we've had guests. We just had Paul Jones, the special effects, the practical effects artist behind numerous horror movies, and most recently, What We Do in the
Oh,
Shadows on the program, and that was a
so
fantastic
cool.
discussion. And one of my most recent projects and newer podcasts I've been working on has been the Hallo-Rewind Podcast, which I've been doing independently with my co-host Ryan Colchera, and we've got several episodes out now, including interviews with horror artist Trevor Henderson, where we talked about the Tales from the Dark Side Halloween episodes, and director Joe Lynch of Suitable Flesh, who talked about the Halloween movie Satan's
Mhm.
Little Helper. So that's been a fun, more conceptual podcast where we talk about Halloween movies and
Mhm.
specials as sort of the main subject, with a lot of other discussions and sort of deep dives into the genre. So both are available to listen to online, and I'd recommend you subscribe to both.
Yes, please, guys, do. It will be in the liner notes, of course. I do like having that kind of dichotomy of show. You've got one that's more of a like hangout vibe, which is at the right time. I totally love listening to a hangout podcast, but at the same time, when I get a little nerdy and I want to like, I guess if I'm cooking, I really want more of a deep dive podcast. I mean, I can think of great like Unspooled is a great deep dive, whereas How Did It Get Made is a really good more of a hangout. Although you
Yeah,
do get some good facts in that, so it's nice to have
true.
both in your portfolio.
Oh, completely agreed. Um, yeah, so yeah, both have a lot of amazing episodes, and I'd recommend checking it out.
Yeah, in fact, this is coming out on the 1st, so what would be the next episode for Eye on Horror
Um,
if this comes out on the 1st?
that would probably be well, the Paul Jones episode is out
Mhm.
now, so that would be the next one available. Um, and we do have another episode coming up in a couple weeks, so just keep your eyes peeled.
Okay, so you subscribe. If you wanna know more, you have to subscribe.
Exactly. We need those subscriptions and 5-star ratings.
Exactly, and, what about Hallo-Rewind Podcast?
That one's a little bit more slow going. We
Mhm,
are working on some more episodes, although we're just kind of building up a stockpile and then planning on releasing
mhm.
them more gradually. So it may be a little bit, but we're hoping to start releasing new episodes over the summer. So again, just subscribe and keep an eye out.
Subscribe and enjoy the anticipation.
Exactly.
So, as a filmmaker, we're getting a kind of view of you, but as a film viewer, I like to ask people this question, which winds up being what is your Letterboxd top 4, but not everybody's on Letterboxd. You yourself are on
That
Letterboxd,
is
so if
true.
people wanted to follow you, those links will be in there and people can follow you on the Letterboxd. What is your top 4?
Sorry, just pulling it up again to make sure I got it right because I
Totally.
keep changing
Yeah.
my top four around. It's
I will admit most people need a 5. I say top 4 and there's always a 5th one that slips in where they're like, "Oh, but if I had to, maybe."
yeah, it's hard to gauge, especially within those constraints
Yeah.
of just 4 movies
Mhm.
because I love a lot of
Mhm.
movies.
Mhm.
But right now my top 4 includes for the season Steven Spielberg's Jaws. That's a classic.
Mhm. Perfect season choice.
Yeah, no, it's one of my all-time favorite movies. And growing up in Massachusetts, I did go to Martha's Vineyard a lot. So it was cool to, actually go to the spots where they filmed Jaws after watching Jaws
Mhm.
and kind of get in my head of, how they did it and watching the special features.
Absolutely.
Um, and it's just very timeless, like I've seen it probably more than any other movie ever. Like I've watched it at least once a year, every year for as long as I can remember.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, no, and I mean, it just holds up. It's almost flawless, and that shark is still scary as all hell.
That's what's really impressive is that the shark in that is still so scary, and when you compare it to God, Under Paris, which just came out and stinks of at its best, stinks of ripping off Jaws and is just the CGI is garbage, and you're like, they used a whole animatronic. You had how much to, and he came up with, fine, I'll just go watch Jaws. Have you heard about the people who watched Jaws on a screen while sitting on inflatables in water?
Oh yeah, no, I would love to do that someday myself.
I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I could do that.
Especially because I heard that the Alamo one they did, they would have divers go around and grab your leg while you're watching the movie to freak you out.
Oh, I definitely 100% need to sign a piece of paper that says, like, I promise I won't kill anyone. I won't faint.
I had
Oh.
and actually I had a particularly harrowing experience watching Jaws once a few years ago. Back in 2019, they were doing a double feature of Jaws with the movie Hard Ticket to Hawaii. And while we were watching Jaws, a huge 6.7 earthquake hit. And
Oh, fuck.
yeah, and the irony was that it was during one of the quietest scenes of the film, during that part where, Chief Brody is just kind of hanging out with his son and, the light music's playing, it's very calm, but then the whole building started shaking and, it was terrifying. Like some people running out and other people were just kind of running around, didn't know what to do. Like I was just kind of frozen. And they actually stopped the movie. But fortunately, though, there wasn't any damage and nobody was hurt. So they just stopped the film and then restarted from where they left off. But yeah, I can't think of a much more exciting way to see Jaws than in what was it? Sense Around, or that earthquake gimmick.
Sensorama.
Yeah, Sensorama.
Yeah, where they have they shake the floor. They usually do that at like Universal Studios when we are on the Twister ride. Like they blow wind at you, the temperature in the room changes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I kind of got the 40x experience with Jaws, except if there was an earthquake.
That's fucking great.
Out of any other movie, I've seen Jaws across the most repertory theaters too, because
Oh, wow.
I would see it every year at the Coolidge Corner Theater back in my hometown in Brookline. I saw it at the Brattle Theater in Harvard Square. I saw it at a couple spots actually on Martha's Vineyard when they were doing like Jaws Fest for the anniversary. Yeah, so I've seen it across several theaters. It just holds such an important place for me as a movie and as an inspiration.
That's wonderful. Yeah, great choice. No one's gonna fight you on that. If they do, they're just wrong. So
exactly. And in fact, I'm going to see it again at the Egyptian Theater on July 5th. So let's see if an earthquake does or does not happen this time.
we'll have inquiring minds will have to wait. All right. So what's number 2?
Well, this one's more going into personal choice territory, but the 1999 mockumentary film Drop Dead Gorgeous. Are you familiar?
Yes, I think that would probably be the last film that I would expect people to put in their top 4, not because it's not good, but because I feel like only 3 people know it.
Yeah, it is a bit obscure, but it's one of those things where, like, I had an older sister growing up, so, back in the late 90s where there was that kind of trend of teen girl movies, like, she'd babysit me, so I'd have to watch, like, all these movies with her, and honestly, they kind of grew on me.
Yeah.
Let's see, so, I was watching, like, a Jawbreaker and The Craft and let's see, Miss Congeniality, a lot of that type of stuff.
Yeah, to a lesser degree, 27 Dresses.
Oh, and Clueless.
I just like that they have the thriller dance that they have in there. Clueless, also very good, even though it is the Paul Rudd relationship is still a little weird every time I try and rewatch that. I'm like, it's still her stepbrother, though.
True. But anyway, yeah, no, Drop Dead Gorgeous, though, was the one that I think kind of imprinted on me the most, especially because it has that really great kind of blend of social satire and dark comedy, especially for film at that time. And it has a lot of alumni from that sketch comedy group, The State. Like
Oh, yeah.
Thomas Lennon from Reno 911 is like the camera guy, and yeah, no, just in general, the cast is surprisingly stacked because you got Kirsten Dunst as the lead.
I don't usually like a Kirsten Dunst film, but I do have such love for this state that I feel like that's that really saves this for me.
Oh yeah, no, well, I'm a huge Kirsten Dunst fan, and I honestly think this is one of her best roles, if not her funniest. But yeah, let's see, Denise Richards, Kirstie Alley, and Brittany Murphy, and one of my other favorites and I think standouts of the movie, Allison Janney as Loretta. Like, I think she has some of the best lines of the movie.
Yeah. Oh man, I forgot that cast was so stacked. I forgot that Brittany Murphy was in it.
Oh yeah, no, she's great. I just love that she's got the obviously gay brother who's obsessed with Broadway, so she becomes obsessed with Broadway and and is gonna do like Liza Minnelli stunt in her beauty pageant
Mhm.
segment.
Mhm. Mhm.
But yeah, though going to it, yeah, no, just I think it's just a really great comedy, and also it was a very funny social satire
Yeah.
of kind of Americana, especially circa 1999, because it
Mhm.
presents Mount Rose as this, all American nice town, but like everybody's kind of an asshole in it, and
Mhm.
just also kind of going into L well, it's not even just that, uh, beauty pageants are bad, but just that, the corporatization of American ideals, 'cause,
Mhm.
it's like, yeah, it's the, because it's sponsored by this like makeup company and there's a lot of advertising and also just like the local corruption in town because Kirstie Alley's character is like the richest family in town, so like they're clearly getting an advantage over everybody else. But yeah, no, it's a lot of fun, and if you like dark comedies, I can't recommend it enough. And I feel like it was really ahead of the curve, especially being done in kind of a mockumentary style.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is a great coming together of
Yeah.
dark comedy and very 90s, and like it's a great film and I haven't thought about it in a while. Thank you for reminding me about it. I think I'm going to watch it again this week, to be honest.
I'd recommend it. Yeah, I think Warner
Mhm.
Archive. Yeah, is Warner Archive. They put out a Blu-ray of it a few years ago. No special features, but for a long time it was hard to find. So yeah,
Mhm.
always happy about that. Although I also think it's streaming somewhere, so you could probably find it.
Okay. Yeah, most things are in some way streaming nowadays, even the most obscure films. I remember
Yeah.
when like I couldn't even find Roadside Prophets on a streaming like pirating website and like, oh, that's obscure. Now you can get
Mm.
it on Amazon. It's out there. It's fine. So yeah, so let's go number 3 then.
All right. And this was one I actually just revisited a few days ago because they were doing a matinee screening at the New Beverly. But it's Repo Man by Alex Cox. Have you seen that?
Yes. I do love that one. I always start to
Hell
get
yeah.
I get like kind of hesitantly excited because I'm not sure if people are going to keep talking and say Repo Man, the genetic opera. And I'm like, no, I am.
Yeah, sadly, there's been a lot of confusion over that, and then there was that Jude Law action movie, where they also repossess organs it's just kind of weird how that just keeps on happening.
But I do love Repo Man. And I feel that that's a great cult one that I guess because it's a little older, people haven't seen it because I'll talk about it. Be like, oh, when's that from? It's a good movie. See it.
Yeah, no, it's a classic. I just I think it's one of those movies that I caught on TV when I was fairly young,
Hmm.
and like I had no idea what I was watching because it is just such an out there movie, and I feel like every time I rewatch it, I kind of pick up on stuff that I missed the first time. But just in
Hmm.
general, though, it's a really fun and almost unclassifiable because it's a comedy, it's a science fiction movie, it's kind of an action movie toward the end.
Hmm.
It's a conspiracy movie. Like it's just so many different plot lines and characters. It's just so easy to get lost in the chaos. But
Yeah.
I just really love the dynamic that Emilio Estevez has with Harry Dean Stanton as kind of the punk kid who gets taken in and is mentored by this gruff professional repo man, and
Hmm.
just so many classic lines too, just the whole repo man's got all night every night.
It's a movie that I'm genuinely surprised was made when it was made. It is
Oh
so
yeah.
unique and different that you're like, how did they greenlight this?
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's exemplified in the time period because it came out in 1984, at the height of, the Reagan administration and the
Mhm,
punk scene, which was the
mhm.
funny thing because, like, the soundtrack for the movie is one of the best punk soundtracks out there, which when it first came out, the movie itself was not a huge hit, but the album was so popular that it just kept on getting punched out. And funny enough, I was actually just re-listening to the vinyl soundtrack.
Nice.
Just got this, and yeah, I mean, just look at this collection because you got Iggy Pop, Black Flag, Suicidal Tendencies, The Plugs, Juice Bananas, The Circle Jerks. It's just a great setup for an album for a movie like this, and kind of the punk aesthetic and soundtrack is only fitting for a movie like Repo Man.
Absolutely. It's a movie that you can definitely put your flag on and kind of be like, this is who I am as a person. It's got such a well-rounded thing. Like, I like the soundtrack, I like the acting, I like the storyline, I like how unique it is. Like, yeah, definitely a great one.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes I'll get like I wanna tell people one of my favorite movies, and it's Lady Hawk, and I'll have to defend that soundtrack, so it's way easier to be like, "I like Repo Man's soundtrack," than to be like, "Well, let me tell you what, this synth music really makes you feel like you're in the European countryside." It's no, okay, just me.
Yeah, I like Lady Hawk.
Oh god. I cannot sell Lady Hawk to people who haven't seen Lady Hawk no matter how hard I try, and it is truly a great film in my opinion, but it's very 80s.
Oh, extremely so, but it's part of the charm.
Part of the charm, indeed. And, I like Rucker Howard in just about anything, so
Yeah, Rutger Hauer rules.
absolutely. I mean, I'll even watch him in, God, what's the one where they're jugging and they have the dog skulls that they're trying to play sports with and Vincent
Oh,
D'Onofrio?
The Blood of Heroes.
Blood of Heroes. Not to be confused with Bloodsport, which is what I usually do confuse those titles. That's a quality 80s action ridiculous movie where they invent a whole sport. My husband has a friend who studies the morphology of dog skulls, and we're
Oh, wow.
constantly trying to be like, hey, could you give us a dog skull so we can start a jugging league? And she's like, no.
Funny you mentioned that, though. I've got some friends who do this thing called Wasteland Weekend, where basically it's kind of a group post-apocalypse cosplay, and they actually do play jugging. Like they actually, I
Yes.
don't know if they have actual skulls or if they're fake skulls, but they do that.
Okay, where does this happen? That is the most beautiful thing I've ever heard.
I think it's like Death Valley, or it's kind of out in the desert just outside of LA. Like
That's
they got a
fantastic.
website, so you can look it up.
Oh god, that's gonna be in the liner notes too. You're gonna lose me to that. That's the most beautiful thing I've heard all week. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so let's go number 4 then.
Okay, for number 4, kind of going more in my wheelhouse with horror, it's Dario Argento's Phenomena.
I just watched this a few days ago for the
Oh,
first time ever because I had watched, the first Omen, and it was, like,
nice.
so Dario pretty, but it didn't have the, like, Dario I wanted, and I was like, "Wait a minute, there's one I haven't seen," and I found that on Tubi.
Yeah, you can find it anything on Tubi.
It's true. You just have to watch 1,000 commercials that splurk in right in the middle.
Pretty much. But anyway, yeah, Phenomena is my favorite Argento movie, hands down. I think because it is just an encapsulation, if not a summation of his career, because it has
Mhm.
everything that came before in his filmography, like psychic powers, the Giallo stuff, animals. It has a chimp with a razor,
Mhm. Mhm.
a stack cast, including Jennifer Connelly in the lead role.
Her second role ever.
Yeah, because the one before that was Once Upon a Time in America, right?
Yes, Labyrinth is right after this, so this is pre-Labyrinth. I mean, she's so
Yeah,
young, she almost doesn't look like herself.
I know, right? But yeah, no, this was her start, and you got veteran genre actor Donald Pleasance playing a scientist, and you've got Argento mainstay Daria Nicolodi as one of the other leads,
Mhm.
and it has some of my favorite. kills and sequences from a lot of his movies. Like the chase sequence while Jennifer's sleepwalking and that other student gets stabbed through the head and the spear comes out her mouth. Minor spoiler, but I love how Argento puts clues in his movies, because if you rewatch that scene, you can see the killer reflected in the glass after the kill.
Oh, I did not notice that.
I know it took me a long time to realize that too, but it's there.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I also love the soundtrack on that one. You
Oh,
got
yeah,
Flash
that's
to
a
the
good one.
Blade from Iron Maiden.
Yes.
Good metal soundtrack.
Oh yeah, no, it is always funny when the heavy metal pops up in there, because it's Iron Maiden and Motorhead and Andy Sex Gang, I think, was the other one, but then
Mhm.
offset by the beautiful synthy score from Claudio Simonetti of Goblin.
Mhm.
Just because you got the heavy metal, but then you've got like a lot of the spooky synth score stuff, so it is kind of funny how they offset each other.
Yeah, they did. It does a good job of fitting both of those in at different times. It's impressive.
Is setting the mood. And it also has like one of the most horrifying and disgusting scenes like I've seen in probably any horror movie. Like the part where Jennifer falls into the pit of corpses is
Oh God,
so
yeah,
disgusting.
yeah. Good times. That's a good horror movie, though. I love it when it
Yeah.
does that.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful film. And again, my
Mhm.
favorite Argento, so I couldn't recommend it enough.
Absolutely. Great choices.
Thank you.
Feel like those are really a nice breadth of, like, you have a good top 4 that shows I got a comedy, I got a horror, I got a classic American film. Sometimes people just hit the same note, like, how about, Transformers 1, 2, 3, 4, all of the pumpkin heads, just which is good. Or sometimes I wonder if people just pick their top 4 based on the posters because they're all the same color. It's very like,
Hmm.
oh, that's pretty, but are those your favorite movie or are those just all yellow?
Yeah, I've seen people make their selections kind of more based off aesthetic.
Yeah. To each their own, to each their own.
Yeah.
So we're kind of at the halfway point of our first part here. So let's move on into why haven't you seen Tampopo?
Okay. Well, it's funny. I've been thinking about it a lot, and
Mhm.
it's not really anything negative to do with the movie. I'm
Sure.
sure it's good. It's just, I think it's more that I've gotten distracted by watching other stuff, or like the premise, while interesting, hasn't hooked me so much that I've made it a priority.
Mhm.
Um, and I mean, I know of the movie, and I've seen people praise it. Just yeah, no, I've never made it like a huge motivation to watch it. Like
Mhm.
we've screened it a couple times at the Cinematheque, but yeah, and there'd be something else playing, or I'd just be watching something else that kind of grabbed my attention more. So yeah,
Mhm.
no, I mean, it's nothing against the film. It's just um yeah, just haven't made the time for it.
Absolutely. And when we do this, each time there's a different reason for why people haven't seen it. And sometimes it can be a pretty aggressive, I think I'm going to fucking hate this. But more often than not, it's like I missed it or I'm afraid of it or like I just didn't wind up getting my attention. But what I think is so interesting in talking to you in the last 36 minutes so far about your filmmaking and films that you like is I think that you'll come to enjoy this movie because it is very experimental, in my opinion.
Hmm.
I mean, it's considered a classic film. It's on God, it's on the why do they do such a large number? I think it's 250 all-time narrative films that you need to see, which is just so many. But it's
Hmm.
pretty high up there. But at the same time, it is narratively disjointed. I have you ever read Anna Karenina?
No.
Anna Karenina was a novel that was written paid by the word. So, it's as long as it is because the guy who wrote it was paid by the word. It starts yeah, right. It starts with a different character in her story, and it keeps flashing back and forth, and at times it can feel like you get, "Why are these 2 stories jammed together?" And that's a little bit of what happens with Tampopo, is it meanders in and out. It really reminded me of a couple of experimental films that came out in the late 90s, early aughts. Night on Earth is the title of one of them, and the other one is, I can't remember, but they're following a dollar bill. So you stay with the vignette of who has the dollar bill, and then it gets given or paid to someone else, and then you get stuck with the dollar bill in the next story. And so Tampopo has this fluidity where you'll be with the main story. It's ultimately about a man helping a woman learn how to make the best bowl of ramen ever and have a new ramen shop, but you'll wind up wandering away in these really curious kind of stories. And for some people, that feels really weird and they fucking hate it. But for some other people who are maybe a little bit more into experimental films, it's really curious to see all the different ways that they attempt to wander away from the main story. And I'll even throw it out there. I love this movie, but there are certain scenes that I just don't like. They just don't work for me.
Okay.
How much are you a fan of, say, like spaghetti westerns or films that are kind of adaptive of early American Western films? I know we talked about Dario Argento, and you kind of fall sideways into Italian horror and then spaghetti westerns.
Yeah, no. I mean, hell, Argento was one of the writers on Once Upon a Time in the West.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I do watch a lot of those. I actually have a few collections of spaghetti westerns in my Blu-ray collection, and let's see, I was actually at a double feature of Fistful of Dollars and For a Few Dollars More at Tarantino's The Vista a couple months ago. So yeah, no, that definitely is within my interests.
Perfect. Ah, awesome. Cool. Yeah, because the main story about making ramen it's very much in a sort of Western feel. I mean, it's interesting the ways in which this film both leans into genres that it's stealing from or genres that it's like existing and mocking in, and then pushing hard against it, because it's ultimately still this story about a woman making soup. And it's like, oh, but it's a Western. I mean, like, it's still soup though, right? I will say this right now. Do not watch this movie hungry. Watch this movie with food. Watch this movie with snacks. And if you like ramen, order ramen, because I tried to watch this movie a couple nights ago at like 11 o'clock at night, and I done messed myself up. I needed soup so bad.
Yeah, no, I do love ramen, which is another thing I love about Los Angeles, because we've got a massive selection. Like, there's almost a ramen shop on every corner.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, this is actually in New York, but the first authentic ramen shop to open up in New York City took the name of the first version of the ramen shop in this movie. They named themselves Ray Ray, which is how deep this goes into the culture. And everything that they say about making soup is actually accurate. You could watch this movie and learn how to make a really good ramen. It's kind of impressive. So if you're a foodie,
No.
you might enjoy this. Are you a foodie?
I wouldn't really call myself that. I like food.
Who does? Gotta like food. It's good food. I mean, especially the way that they talk about and shoot food. This is a really interesting movie because you have to foley people eating so much. And I kind of have a little bit of a like synesthesia thing where I don't like the sound of people eating too much.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes to my upbringing, because my dad was very strict about, you don't chew with your mouth open. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he would get upset if we did that. So I think it kind of rubbed off on me. It just table manners in general. He was very strict. He's very strict about that. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no, it does bother me a lot when people chew loudly or eat food loudly.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say it's got chewing. It approaches the difference between American customs and Japanese customs with regards to slurping noodles.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot of slurp foley. I wish I
Uh,
could sit down with the guy. One guy was probably just in charge of getting slurps, and he does get all the slurps. So there is a point at which you might be a little bit fried on the sound, but I do try and step back and be like, they did a really good job getting all those slurp noises. I mean, somebody was probably just right next to the mic going to town.
Have to see, I guess. But oddly, noodle slurping doesn't bother me as much because it is very hard to eat ramen without slurping noodles.
Yes, absolutely, or at least making some sort of slurping noise
Yeah,
for the broth.
it's impossible.
So, we'll give them that as well.
Just comes with the territory.
Yes, yeah, and they're making a commentary on the fact that they're using a Western style, which is American, on
Mm.
top of their Japanese film, so there's this American predisposition, so why are they using so many slurps, but it's still a Japanese film? How well do you feel versed in Japanese films? Do you find yourself, some people don't really like subtitled movies, although as we're getting older, I feel like everybody just wants subtitles even when it's in English.
Oh yeah, no, I've definitely felt that too. A lot of group watches with friends, they do ask to put the subtitles on.
Mhm,
But yeah, no, I'm a big fan of Japanese cinema. Like just a few
mhm.
weeks ago, I was at a screening of Takashi Miike's 13 Assassins at the Egyptian Theater.
Oh, yeah. Nice, nice.
Yeah, I love samurai movies. I love anime.
Oh,
So yeah, I mean, I've seen some Kurosawa recently. Like,
mhm,
oh yeah, like they did a screening of Seven Samurai, or in one of his more obscure movies, Urzu Azala,
mhm.
which, funny enough, me and Jared saw together.
Nice. Yes, yeah. I feel like Jared is the friend who introduced me to Kurosawa,
Oh
and
yeah, no,
then
he's a huge Kurosawa head.
yeah, yeah. So it's a rabbit hole to get down, and it's a beast to attack because they're very large films, and you think
Oh
that you're
yeah,
like, I don't know if I can sit down for an hour and 2 hour 40-minute movie, but then you're watching Hidden Fortress, and it's just compelling as fuck. The pacing is
yeah.
perfect. You don't even notice it's 2 hours and 40 minutes. Like I actually did Hidden Fortress on a treadmill on an elliptical,
Wow,
and didn't realize. I was like, oh shit, guess
it's
we done.
wild.
It is. It's a 2 hour and 40-minute film, but
Yeah,
it's good. So I think I think then you'll fit into it well. I'm trying to think of the things that, people have told me they didn't like about Tampopo having
yeah.
watched it.
Although it's also funny because now I'm thinking, like, I did see this other movie by Takashi Miike. That just kind of sounds like it fits that bill in terms of ramen and western. It is called Sukiyaki Western Django, which
Yes!
strangely enough was his kind of pseudo remake or reference to both Django and Yojimbo, with a guest appearance by Quentin Tarantino himself. And yeah,
Mhm.
they have sukiyaki noodles.
Absolutely. I would say that that is a really great choice, for comparative film. It's not as Western as
Right,
sukiyaki is. It pulls it back just a little bit. I think it lets it sit in the '80s. It's actually made in the '80s, so it's
right.
happening in the '80s, but there's this, like, faintness of Western. Oh, I think you will enjoy this. I often ask these questions as we approach the end of the show. We're kind of in the middle of it right now. Is
Mm.
there something specific that you really are kind of excited that might be in it, or something that you're maybe a little worried might be in it?
Um, Well, the more I hear about it, I am interested in seeing kind of how the cross cultural references are used within the context of the film, because
Mhm,
it is funny just looking at American and Japanese cinema, how the Western has influenced Japanese cinema and the samurai movie has influenced American cinema and vice
mhm,
versa. So I do find it interesting whenever Wild West or yeah, cowboy films are kind of integrated into Japanese cinema. In fact, there's a couple of Japanese movies set in the Wild West. First one that comes to mind is this one called East Meets West, which I think is on Tubi.
every movie's on Tubi.
Yeah, you can find it all on Tubi. But yeah, with Tampopo, because like I mostly knew about the ramen stuff.
Mhm.
Didn't really know so much about there being a Western influence. So I am fascinated and would like to see how that plays out. There isn't really anything I could say afraid of there being in the movie or nervous about. Like when it comes to cinema, just kind of go in and see what happens.
Absolutely. That's a great way to do it. I have found that when I approach people for this podcast, if they have a breath of horror love or if they're horror filmmakers, they
Hmm.
are almost inflappable. They are almost hard to find a movie they haven't seen or they're unwilling to watch. They'll be like, yeah, this is better than Slaughterhouse, so sure, Like, oh yeah, no, you went deep. You watched Pope's Exorcist,
Hmm.
and bless your heart. For me, there are two things that I just want to throw out there, and this is also for viewers. If you are a person who has a little bit of difficulty with violence towards animals, which I myself find I am in, at the hour mark, so it's at 1 hour in to 1 hour and 2 minutes in, they are cooking turtle soup and they kill a live turtle on film.
Oh.
So fast forward, just stop at an hour, fast forward 2 minutes, you'll have all of the context that you need for the rest of the film to understand why we're in that scene. You can see the soup, but you don't have to see them actually kill the turtle on film.
Oh, they actually do kill the turtle.
They do show you them killing the turtle. They're
Oh,
preparing food,
right.
so they're showing it as preparing food, but it is a live animal.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of a step above the notorious cannibal Holocaust.
Exactly. But it's still pretty upsetting, so I
Yeah,
just wanna throw that out there that you can still totally enjoy this movie without having to watch that particular scene, and it's only 2
fair.
minutes, and it doesn't affect the context.
Yeah.
The other warning that I do give people when seeing this movie is that the movie contains cytophilia, which is the word for, fetishizing sex with food.
Ooh.
It's a food movie, so it has that in there. There's a couple of scenes where it gets really weird. I'm gonna let you know right now,
Damn.
there's a scene with a raw egg yolk.
Ew.
It's really weird. But when you get to the scene with the live shrimp, the shrimp are fine, and you can watch her mouth does not sync up with the laughing. So if you're like, ugh, you can just, oh yeah, the audio's, you can step back
Hmm.
out of the film and watch that. Those are my two, like, warnings. Like, if you're, the things that I'm afraid for people to see when they watch this movie, just because it's a
Hmm.
little bit weird. So I throw those two things out there. But if there is a bit of it that I am excited for you to get to see, I think that it is the Charlie Chaplin scene where they make an omelet. They make a rice omelet. It's nonverbal.
Hmm.
It's only a couple of minutes long. It's a tangented scene. It comes right before my least favorite scene in the whole movie, but it's a really good scene, and I think it's kinda cute, and I
Hmm.
enjoy that they threw that in there, just a little, like, a little nod. But yeah, there there are some things to be excited about and maybe some things to be like, times they have a changed." But overall, I think that you will enjoy this movie, especially from having spoken to you about it. I'm hyped for you.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any final thoughts?
Um, well, just talking about ramen's making me hungry about ramen without even seeing the movie yet. So I gotta get like a big bowl either before or during when I watch Tampopo.
Yes, I would probably, at the very least, order as soon as you hit play, or maybe order 20 minutes before you hit play, depending on
Yeah.
your delivery times in your area. What is your favorite flavor of ramen, by the way?
Ooh, that's tough. I'd have to say, as of recently, probably the one I've been ordering the most has been spicy miso ramen. Although I'm also a big fan of places when they have chicken broth ramen. Those are
Mhm.
both really good.
Absolutely, yeah. This movie is just, there's so much talking about food, it makes you hungry. In fact, another fun thing to look forward to in watching this movie is the way in which they shoot food preparation, which, if you watch the Julia Childs show that they had on Amazon Prime, they talk about how they came up with these different camera, like, mirrors on the ceiling to be able to shoot the hands of Julia Childs while she was working, because it's actually really, really hard to get your camera down and in and to still have the person's hands while they're cooking. So there's so many ways and needs to shoot cooking in this film and still keep it interesting, and I really feel like they did that.
All right, yeah, no, I'd be interested in looking into that.
Yeah, cool. All right, so that's it for us, guys. We're gonna bump out, and you're gonna go watch the movie, and then when we return, we'll know what if you liked it.
And I'll be sure to let you know what kind of ramen I got.
Oh yeah, the that's gonna be the very first question when we come back is what did you eat while watching this? All right, guys, see you on the other side. Welcome back, guys. Here we are, part 2, having now both seen Tampopo either once or rewatched it, and here to discuss.
Yep. This is my first time watching Tampopo, and I can plainly say that I liked it.
Hey, yes, we won't bury the lead on this. I was trepidatious because I did not remember so many of the offshoot vignettes. And I was a
Yeah.
little worried that it was like, oh, is this going to be way too disjointed? Like, did I do an edit where I only remembered the parts about the noodle?
hmm
But did you enjoy the weirdness of it? Like, how do you feel about the fact that it seems to have 2 stories in it? It kind of is a gangster movie and a Western.
I wouldn't even just say that. It has a lot going on. It kind of felt like I feel the closest comparison, or at least the thing that came to mind for me, was that episode of The Simpsons, 22 short films around Springfield, and that there are kind of the main characters like the Simpsons, or in this case, uh, Goro, Gun, and Tampopo, but then it just kind of splits into these vignettes or subplots or just kind of goings ons
Mhm,
around their neighborhood with these other characters. So it's just kind of it's a real slice of
mhm,
life story where it's just showing kind of the time and lives of these people in this town, as it kind of
mhm,
centers around Tampopo and the ramen shop. So you get, yeah, and I think it adds to the main plot line, or you know
mhm.
I feel like it's also kind of meant to be how like the ingredients make the flavor. Like when they're giving the instructions on the ramen, it's like all these other stories add to the flavor of the overall story of the movie.
Yes. Yes, if you think about the movie being like, there's the meat of the story, the pork of the story is Gun and Tampopo. Everything else is like a little daikon radish, a little bit of that. It flavors the broth, so to speak.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
the stuff with the businessman ordering at the restaurant, and the one guy's trying to order something different and everybody else gets pissed at him and keeps on kicking his leg, or the women's society who are like trying to instruct how to properly eat spaghetti, and that clerk at the grocery store trying to catch the old
Mhm.
lady who keeps on squeezing the food.
Squeezing the peaches.
She squeezed the peach too hard, but also, yeah, like the gangster who has that very bizarre erotic food sex with that woman, very messy, like that whole thing where like they're exchanging the egg yolk back and forth while making out,
Yep. Yeah.
and yeah, just like a lot, yeah, so much of it is food related, and it just like
Yeah.
it ties in some way or another into Tampopo's story.
Yeah. You're really hitting a key aspect of something I think about why this film is important to see, is that there are indelible scenes. There are so many indelible scenes. Whether or not you're disgusted by the, like, egg back and forth, like, that kind of that scene always makes me a little like,
Yeah, that was very uncomfortable.
uncomfortable, but especially as 2 people who wanna be making horror movies, there's something about shocking an audience to make them pay attention that, like, refreshes you into the story, and then you don't get too warm or too comfortable. You kinda keep getting shocked out of it. And so, like, these scenes they just stick with you. They stick with you so very, very hard. And
Yeah.
something I learned about this movie that I thought was particularly interesting is it's one of the first films to feature a food specific creative director and set director. So there was
Huh.
somebody who was in charge of making sure each bowl of soup looked a specific way for camera and was still edible. And that wasn't something that
Huh.
happened before.
Interesting.
And so there's so much care for how the film is shot because, like you said, it's all about food and it's about this love letter to food. And that's really interesting to me because I sat back and started to think about how many films do I know that are super food-centric?
Yeah.
And for yourself, like, if you were to answer that question, oh, I mean, besides Ratatouille, the unbelievable classic, hands down, what are some food movies that really stick with us?
Huh. Oddly, I think one that comes to mind right now would be the Grand Budapest Hotel.
Yeah, that's a great choice, definitely.
Yeah, because like the whole thing with the bakery,
Mhm.
or take another step back, Paddington 2. You know, with the with Dom. What was it? Uh, Gleason as the convict chef.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm gonna out myself. I have not seen any of the Paddingtons.
Oh well, if you want to brighten your day, there you go.
I know, right? I mean, I think maybe I'll save it for if I ever get diagnosed with cancer or something.
Whoa.
No, I do intend to watch them. Until Jared told me they were actually good, I would never have even looked twice, and I think that might be a key tenet of this show. I might have to make Jared make me watch them and come back on the show. Um,
Hmm.
but staying on track, I was thinking about food movies, and so I Googled it, and I was like, so this is our first set dress. There was a first food movie, and it actually goes like so far back that it was more upsetting than I thought. I was like, oh, it'll probably be like what, the 50s, and it was like the Lumiere brothers did a little thing where like they had his wife spoon feeding their baby to show this like love and affection through food, and that's
Hmm.
1895. So wanting to film food as love is like a way back tenant of film. And yet I didn't even really think about filming. Do you use food a lot in your stuff that you shoot? I know that anytime I use food, it's complicated. You don't want the actor to eat too much of it, and it needs to not spoil on set. And it's like, oh, I might as well have a
Yeah.
baby here.
Yeah, no, I don't think I've really worked with food or dinner scenes or anything like that. And like you were saying, it can get very complicated and expensive. And yeah, also the poor actors have to keep eating or fake eating over and over. It just get kind of messy.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, I mean, like it can really add to it. Uh, actually, this reminds me that one of my favorite food related stories in regards to a movie's production was how for the Wolf of Wall Street there's that scene with Leonardo DiCaprio and Jonah Hill, and like they're eating sushi together,
Mm.
and Leonardo DiCaprio kept on interrupting the scene or doing it in such a way that Jonah Hill had to like eat so much sushi until he was about ready to pass out.
Yeah, yeah. I lived that actually. I was on a movie that's not very good. It's The Devil's Nightmare. It's not that good. No, I'm in a movie. Jared worked on The Devil's Nightmare, and
Ah,
Devani Pin is in it. That's like the most famous person who's in it.
hmm,
She's like a scream queen.
right.
Everybody played a specific one of the seven deadly sins. I played gluttony. I had to eat sun chips for a scene,
Uh,
just housing them, and the actors kept fucking up their lines. It took so long, and I'm just housing them in the background. I couldn't film the next day because my ankles swelled up so bad from the salt that I
Ooh,
ate. I couldn't walk.
damn.
It's just and to this day, I won't eat sun chips.
Yeah, I can definitely see why. That's like Clockwork Orange for sun chips.
Right? Oh, man, but I don't know. I feel like I could probably eat that much ramen and still be
Oh
okay.
yeah.
Which is also an interesting thought about this film. I've eaten ramen since I was a little kid. I'll eat ramen for
Mm,
breakfast. I love instant noodles. But when this film came out, ramen wasn't really widely available in the United States. I mean, they had brought over sushi in the
yeah.
70s because of the health aspect of sushi, but ramen wasn't like a major thing. And when Tampopo came out, Roger Ebert gave this movie a very positive review, but he said, I think audiences will know little about and care even less about the search for the perfect noodle
Mm,
because nobody knew what the fuck it was or had it. Like they'd never had it. And this
mm.
movie kind of brought it to us to the point that when we get the first noodle shop in New York, it's named Rai Rai. It's named after Tampopo's original restaurant. Like that's how much it influenced
Oh,
us.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, like, oh god, this movie is really, really influential, and it's
Mm.
also kind of really weird.
Oh, it's very weird.
Yeah, so, like, I think of some of the stuff that I've seen of yours, and it feels like, "Man, you should have seen this by now, right?" I mean, now that you've seen it, do you feel like it's a film that should have, like, "Oh, this has always kind of been for me."
Yeah. No, this definitely appeals to me on many levels,
Mhm.
especially on the ramen front, because I suppose I should consider myself lucky in that I did grow up on ramen because growing up in Chestnut Hill in Brookline, there was a prominent amount of Japanese culinary choices.
Nice.
Like I remember there was this sushi place near us called Oishi that my family would go to fairly frequently. And my dad would actually take me to this place called Sapporo Ramen in I think it was Porter Square.
Mm,
Yeah, we would go there uh every so often. I think it opened when I was in middle school. And yeah, no, just and that was some quality homemade ramen. Like, it felt like Tampopo.
nice.
Yeah, no, just and but on the movie itself, like it does appeal to me and my own sensibilities because I really do like slice of life or kind of out there interconnected stories. Like one of my other favorite movies is David Byrne's True Stories, which I feel kind of runs parallel to this in some
Mhm.
ways without being a musical. Um, Although it does have characters with cowboy hats.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really know exactly why I hadn't watched the movie up till now because, as I'd mentioned earlier, the American Cinematheque has screened Tampopo several
Mhm.
times. I think it's just one of those cases where I knew a little bit about it and it sounded interesting, but I just didn't really, go out of my way to see it.
Yeah, I think that they do themselves a small disservice in pitching this as a a noodle western, which is a play, of course, on spaghetti western.
Hmm.
Because the slice of life aspect and the wandering away and the way that it kind of just, like we say, it makes this whole broth, this whole soup of collections of what it's like to live in Japan at that time is really what is so alluring about it as a film and makes it so enduring.
Hmm. Yeah, no, and in fact, I was hooked as early as the opening, where it's sort of metacontextual with the gangster and his girlfriend going to the movie theater and breaking the fourth wall and talking about food at the movie theater, and they've got like this fancy French plate and
Mhm.
wine, and they talk complain about people who crinkle their potato chip wrappers loudly at the theater, which I relate to. And I actually was agreeing
Me
with him
too.
when he threatened that old guy who was crinkling his potato chips during the movie or at the start.
I will tell my husband if he gets a crinkly snack and brings it in, like, "Open it before we get in there."
Yes, yes. This is why potato chips never caught on at movie theaters. Just too much of a distraction.
Absolutely, and that makes a lot of sense because this film is a love letter to food. It's a love letter to filmmaking as well. I think there's so much of that built in there.
Oh, without a doubt, just I think it even shows in just how it covers such a wide variety of genres and film movies and styles.
Mhm,
Because yeah, there's like the gangster movie, there's the cowboy trucker guys. It's kind of the town coming together to help
mhm.
Tampopo with a restaurant, and and there's even like drama with uh the guy whose wife is dying and they're eating the last meal
Oh
she's
my
ever
god.
cooking.
Oh my god, and that's such a Japanese concept to die of being overworked. Like, there's actually a word for that. I'll have to put it in the after bits, but, like, it's so Japanese culture to do that scene.
Oh yes. So and I feel just by covering so many different genres, it kind of covers so many different aspects of life,
Mhm,
especially with Japanese cinema at that time. This came out in '85,
mhm,
because yeah, like they've got a lot of comedy. They've uh, kind of got the more slice of life stuff and the familial drama and
mhm.
just kind of more grounded day to day stories, and like the homeless encampment talking about food and the guy who goes to the dentist. So it's just yeah, it's just a tapestry. It's
I was gonna say they have a great fight scene too.
Oh, they they have a lot of fight scenes, like it even as early as the beginning where Goro fights those drunk guys,
Yeah.
and yeah, and there's a shootout at the end, and there's yeah, just as is just a lot to unpack, just so many different styles and
Mhm.
subplots and characters. It knows what it likes, and puts it on the forefront.
In as much as it shows food is very, very indulgent and very, very ritualistic, and like there are these things that you do when you eat and the way that you behave. That beginning scene shows us that like there are things that you do and there are ways that you behave when you're watching a movie, which in and of itself is a like indulgent thing that you do to please yourself. So to make those two parallels side by side while it's wandering through all of these slice of lives, it feels very, very rich and very, very, very deep. And I super enjoy that. It also has, and this comparison I think definitely makes sense, and it may also be just because it is a Japanese movie. People compare it a lot to Seventh Samurai.
Hmm.
You've seen that movie?
Oh, of course, it's classic.
Right? Great film. People say that it's kind of like the same movie if the samurai came to town and like defended the town against mediocre noodles.
That is a fun way of putting it, and I mean, yeah, it does play so much into kind of the samurai western tropes, which are basically brothers to each other. Like Goro and Gun have the cowboy hats, and they ride into town. And at the end, Goro rides off into the sunset on his truck instead of a horse.
Yeah, that ride off into the sunset. He also reminds me a little bit of Jack Burton in his Pork
Yeah,
Chop Express, kind of.
yeah. Although it's funny because this came out a couple years before Big
Mm-hmm.
Trouble in Little China.
Mm-hmm.
And if anything, I'd say he kind of gives me Toshiro Mifune vibes, from the Kurosawa movies, be it like Seven Samurai or Sanjuro in Yojimbo and Sanjuro, just kind of seemingly kind of oafish, but Gil hero and also somebody willing to put himself out there. So yeah, it does feel like he kind of ascribes to the kind of character of that genre and
Mm-hmm.
his methods.
Yeah, he is way more effective than Jack Burton. Like, I think Jack Burton would be a character
Yes,
that
yes.
was a crude facsimile, because obviously he is not the capable one in that particular story. But it's possible that Carpenter saw this and was like, I'll borrow a little bit of that.
It's a distinct possibility.
And that, of course, is played by Ken Watanabe, who, like, if you're listening to this and you're not sure, he was Sato in Inception. He was Dr. Ishiro in Godzilla, the 2014 one. Hatun in The Creator, and then Lieutenant Hito in Detective Pikachu, amongst many, many other things. But I always love
Mhm.
seeing him in stuff, so it's kind of fun to be like, oh, look, young Ken Watanabe.
Yeah. No. Oh, yeah. No, I didn't even recognize him. He was so young.
Oh yeah, so young. So young. Tampopo, who's played by Nabuko Miyamoto, is actually Juzo Itami's wife. They made almost all their films together. So
Oh,
there's a
wow.
lovingness of filming her while cooking that I feel also shows up on screen.
Yeah. No, well, in that context, that does explain a lot, really.
Mm,
Also, what do you think is the importance of her name being Tampopo, which means dandelion?
that's a really great question. I haven't given it too much particular thought, but I've always kind of thought that like a dandelion can be misconstrued as a weed. It's not really considered a flower and it can get overlooked, but it is actually edible, delicious, and worth your attention. So I've always kind of thought like if you were going to name somebody after a flower but you didn't want them to seem as pretty as they were, you would use dandelion.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting perspective. And I mean, this is just me thinking out there, but
Oh yeah.
it also could be because dandelions, spread their seed around, and maybe it's because it's like the story, everything is spread around,
Oh yeah.
all the seeds and plot lines.
I like that. I like that a lot. Totally.
Yeah,
Ooh.
I mean, it's just
Hmm.
a matter of interpretation, I suppose.
That's the great thing about stuff like film and literature where there's the intent of the artist upon creation, but there's always going to be the like reality and experience of the viewer or the audience or the reader that can create a different and second connotation that, sure, the author never meant for that to be there, but you know what? Like, that's pretty accurate. Sometimes people will say to me, like, oh, did you mean that in Girl in the Basement? And I'll be like, I didn't even think I did, but I guess I do because you're right. It's there.
Especially with a movie as wide and largely ambiguous as this, there's just so many different ways that you can take it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love your comparison to that episode of The Simpsons.
Thank you.
I think The Simpsons gets both heralded and like thrown to the fire. People either love it or they hate it. It's either highbrow
Mm.
or it's lowbrow, and it's much like this film, Everything at Once and a Slice of Life. So to go to that, it's like, oh God, yeah, that really does explain the feeling of wandering into and out of each scene and how whimsical it all feels.
And every character really is so quirky and stands out in their own ways.
They instantly become the main character of their own particular scenes. And while
Yeah.
I definitely think you see that in Dollar Bill, that film where it's actually $20 bill. I looked it up, it's not dollar bill. Where you're following the money around, that sets you on the ground. This one just lets you come back to the main story and wander away, and that is kind of unique. And you, even though you wander the whole time and some of the scenes are a little gross, I never felt like I was being dragged through something that felt like homework.
Mm.
And a lot of times when movies are foreign films or they're Criterion Collection films or they're films that are labeled for foodies, like there's a
Yes.
pretension level that might keep you from seeing it. Even if you think you might like it, you might be like, I'm not in the mood for something pretentious, which I don't feel this film is. I mean, do you?
Oh, not at all. If anything, it feels almost blue collar, very grounded.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm always curious when we watch these films with people. What was your favorite scene and what was your least favorite scene?
Okay, wow. It's just I feel like it's hard to answer that for this movie in particular because
Yeah.
it's a movie with many, many scenes.
Mhm.
Uh, but uh, guess if I had to choose,
You can pick more than one if you have to.
well, yeah, no, I mean like the jeez, so yeah, no, just scratching my head because just so much was happening there. Um, but yeah, like I mentioned before, the businessman scene, where they're all ordering the same thing as the CEO, and then the one young dumb guy keeps on trying to order his own thing. That stood out to me because I feel like it was meant to be kind of a testament to individuality or trying to break from the norm, and I feel that tied up later into uh, the Tampopo's restaurant. But
Mhm.
yeah, for a powerful scene, yeah, the wife making her own final meal that was very powerful and emotional, and just the dad yelling at his kids to finish their mom's final meal, just
Oh,
really hit hard.
yeah, I definitely sat there and thought about that how that would taste in my mouth, which is very interesting because you're having a synesthetic experience a lot while you're watching this movie. You're visually seeing something you can't smell or taste that is highly like aromatic, sorry, highly aromatic, and a large part of it is tasting it. So, like, I don't ever want to eat sun chips again, but can you imagine if there was a dish out there that tasted like the day your mother died?
That is intense, yes.
It's not just the last meal, like, you're never eating udon noodles again, that's it, it's fucking done, man.
Yeah, no, I have a similar thing where um I was in a car accident, and
Oh.
there was a song playing. I mean, it wasn't serious, but
Was it John
um,
Denver? Sorry,
I
Final
was God,
Destination,
no, no,
sorry.
no. But every time I'd hear the song, I would think about the car accident. So it's
Yeah.
just one of those things where, uh, when trauma happens, you tend to mark whatever was happening around that time with that trauma.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my god, I would never, yeah. I mean, it's a whole plot in a movie, I would avoid its songs, I probably might avoid the artist as well if I had had that experience.
Oh yeah. And as for my least favorite scene, you had forewarned me before, but yeah, the turtle scene was hard to watch. I did avert my eyes, uh, which I understand why it's there. It's just
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yeah, it could have easily been off screen, the hand above the knife, so it didn't have to actually kill the turtle. I don't need
yeah,
to know that they're actually drinking the blood. All of this information about the culinary, like, they wanna show us how fancy people eat because we've seen how middle class people eat. This is just more vignette, but it didn't feel like it needed to be real, and that's
yeah,
there's a reason why we have these rules in how films get made now.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, just I always remember what Lloyd Kaufman from Trauma said in that no movie is worth dying for.
Mm.
Uh, and to that extent, I feel like no movie's worth killing anyone or anything for.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's I feel like that's a if P then Q sort of situation or continuation of that sentence. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's like to say that any film or any kind of art is the kind of pretension that I'm talking about when I think of things I don't want to watch. Like there's a movie that just got made and of course John Malkovich stars in it and it's being like put into a vault and it will not be released for 100 years. So no
Oh
one living
yeah, was
now.
yeah? Didn't Robert Rodriguez direct it? And it was like for some wine company or some alcohol company.
I got so angry when I read the headline. I was like, "I'm not even gonna learn about this," but I will include it in the liner notes. But yeah, it just felt like a level of farting into a jar and then trying to sell it.
The
Like,
pretension. Yeah.
so pretentious. So this film does not ever get all the way there, even though it does have that one particular moment, which again, if you're looking at the liner notes, I'll include the timestamp. It's pretty much exactly at the hour mark. You can look away or you can fast forward. There's a wonderful resource I always tell people about called doesthedogdie.com.
Oh
It
yeah.
used to cover just for animals, but now it also covers like extreme trigger or violence towards like babies, women, things like that. And you can
Mm.
type in the title of any movie that you're watching, and it will tell you if it does include a dead animal or something very horrible to watch, and it'll give you the timestamp and how to avoid it if you want to, or if the film is simply something maybe you shouldn't see.
Yeah, that's a good thing to have.
Yeah, yeah. But Tampopo can still totally be watched
Yeah.
by just skipping that one particular scene. I think my favorite scene is the teaching the all women's group to eat spaghetti
Oh yeah. No, that was a good one too.
because I am so averse to mouth noises.
Yes.
It's early on in the movie, so we've started watching the movie, and I'm a little bit like, "Ugh, there's a lot of slurping in this movie. I don't know if I'm gonna get th" and that just it just makes it so hard, in your face, so funny, so like, "Hey, are you an American, and are you being uncomfortable?" Because you guys also do this sometimes too. So, like, it totally got me to sit down and laugh even at my own, like, hang up.
Yeah, that was a favorite of mine as well, especially just in terms of the kind of crossing cultures situation,
Mhm.
and also just how like the white guy sitting across from them is slurping his spaghetti loudly.
Yeah, yeah. It's very, very, very fun.
Yep. And what was your least favorite scene?
If we don't pick the turtle scene, because obviously we just picked the turtle scene, which is kind I don't even consider like, I wouldn't wanna watch that again. Of scenes that I was able to watch but didn't totally enjoy, it's it's that scene with the egg. I feel like at that particular point
Yeah.
with those 2 characters, we've done so much cinephilia, which is, like, food sex, that I feel like the point is belabored, and that is perhaps just to shock me, and if so, you kinda you got me. You got me a little grossed out. You did it.
Yeah. I mean, I get why they're trying to do kind of the interplay of food and sex with the gangster couple.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's just it felt like they were just kind of trying to push the envelope because yeah, it was like the egg, and then he was doing that stuff with like the lemon on her breast and the I think it was like shrimp on her belly, the living shrimp on her belly. And it was just like it was just because like in most like erotic movies or thrillers or whatever, like, they just do something like, oh, he's got a cherry on her, like, or there's like some chocolate or something. Ooh, but no, it's like he's like going the extra mile with these exotic ingredients with
Mhm.
the like seafood and all that, and it's just just kind of over the line at that point.
Yeah, and the laugh from the woman when he tickles her with the live shrimp doesn't sink up to her mouth. So, like,
Oh,
that
I
that
didn't even
scene
realize.
oh god, yeah, that scene is, painful.
At least it looked like they were having fun.
Mm, too true, too true. It wasn't like we had to watch Cannibal Holocaust and be like,
Oh,
"What?"
yeah, no, that's definitely the bottom of the barrel when it comes to those types of things. Oof.
Yeah, absolutely, and, like, to show people to talk about food is to talk about sex because there's this, like, incredible human need for food, this like cycle for it. It's part of being alive, and as much as sex is being part of being alive, and it can be a little taboo and it can be totally normal. So to show us this sexiness across that was I understand the need for it to be there if we wanted to feel like this was a fully complete broth, but also, like, sometimes I'll order a ramen dish and ask them to hold the menune, like, they keep ordering it with the, like, fermented bamboo shoots.
Yeah, yeah.
I would hold that.
And off of that, I feel like it also just ties into the ending because the credits is just music focusing on a woman breastfeeding a child.
Yeah, and, like, this whole feeling that has been brought the first thing that the character who we first meet, our gangster guy dressed all in white, our kind of yakuza, man, which was really prevalent in Japan at that time, so it makes total sense
Hmm.
to use him, talks about the the bitter joy of your final film, the final thing you'll ever get to watch. It's just for you. And, like, we know that he's just died, and you can see in the reaction of his face that he is watching this film, and what we all kind of know that it plays backwards, and so that's the final scene you assume the gangster is thinking of or watching in his head as, spoiler alert, he dies.
Mm.
Yeah, I it's interesting, Coda. It was such an interesting way to do the credits.
Yeah, and just because that's the thing, it just focuses entirely on that baby breastfeeding for the whole of the credits,
Mhm,
and yeah, no, I think that goes to kind of the thesis of the movie and just kind of the exemplification of that this is a movie about life, and
mhm,
so I guess it makes sense that with the yakuza guy dying, it also shows new new life.
mhm. There's a really interesting film that's about to come out, and I say about in the, like, loose terms. It's coming out November 15th, so not really in the about, but the about, called Here by Robert Zemeckis. It's
Oh
got
yeah, I heard about that.
Robin Wright and Tom Hanks are coming back together since the first time since Forrest Gump, with Zemeckis directing, and it talks about, like, a space through time and that whole life lived, and I feel like that's kind of what you're driving at here. These films that have that fullness feel really rich and rewarding, and like, this film is even going to continue into the credits as well. How do you feel about films that have, I mean, there's always this desire to want to keep the audience for the credits. Some people put the credits at the beginning of movies to make people watch them because
Mm.
most people are going to leave. As an artist, where do you want to have your credits?
I think it just really depends more on the movie because
Mhm.
most of the time, the credits are at the end.
Mhm.
Although I've seen plenty of movies where they're at the beginning.
Mhm.
It's funny enough. I was just at a a screening of Forbidden Planet and the Time Machine, which were older science fiction movies from
Yeah.
the 50s and 1960. And back then, all the credits were at the beginning because I feel like a lot of them, and also the more classic Universal movies, had all the credits at the beginning because they still had kind of a theater sensibility to them where,
Mhm.
they even list actors as the players and stuff like
Mm.
that. So it's almost got like a playbill quality to it.
Hmm.
And I don't know. And there's some movies that play with the credits so that it's like it's not necessarily a part of the movie, but just that they still tie into the film you just watched. Like I rewatched the sci-fi horror movie Pandorum, and after the movie, the credits show the titles through like the abandoned ship. So it's there's no really right or wrong answer. It just kind of depends. But for me, I think a good medium is like the main credits at the beginning and then the full credits at the end.
Yeah, I like that. I absolutely like that. I will say, if you could do something interesting with your credits, it definitely makes me take notice. I mean, obviously, I think the first silent Game of Thrones credit throw after the Red Wedding
Mm.
fucked everybody up. They were just like silent credits, and like that had been done before. But you're right, to do it so well within the reason as to why you did it made it stick out, and even non cinephiles noticed.
Oh, definitely.
But I don't like them when they're super gimmicky and they're just like, "Oh my god, can we please leave this Marvel movie? I'll watch the damn after thing on
Yes.
YouTube, for fuck's sake."
Yeah, I definitely feel where you're coming from with that.
Yeah, so
Can't have it be too gimmicky.
yeah, but it definitely felt like it was something that made sense here.
Yeah. Oh, and also I like with Repo Man how their credits are in reverse because like after the movie ends, the credits roll up.
I forgot that they did that. Damn, that is a good movie. People need to watch that. I think that's an
It really
overlooked gem.
is.
It really, really, really is. And of course, included in the liner notes and the top movies to be watching. So as we approach the end of the episode, I always ask the same two major questions, and that's kind of already been answered for question 1, but we'll go into it again. Did you like this movie?
I most certainly did.
How many stars would you give it in a 5-star system?
I'm thinking 4.5.
Nice. Oh, I believe that's what I gave it as well on Letterboxd, which of course you can follow Jacob on Letterboxd. Find those in the liner notes. You can follow me there as well. But go on.
Yeah, no, I mean it was just very enthralling, and Criterion movies got to get those Criterion ratings. Um, but
Mhm.
yeah, no, it does make me want to see it theatrically the next time it plays on a big screen in LA because it is one of those movies that has a lot of replay in the
Mhm.
repertory scene, so I'm sure I'll
Mhm.
get that chance sooner or later.
Absolutely. The way that it shoots food so thoughtfully and so
Mm.
lovingly. I think you can watch it once for the story and the whimsy and everything that's going on and get lost in it, and then you can watch it again, because I watched it a couple of times for this podcast, and really just focus in on like, wow, the way that this is being shot, because it's not people. You don't have actors to give you anything. You have to have the soup give you the message. You have to have the broth feel away, and they did a damn fine job of that here. And none of the food there's no way to watch this movie and not wanna eat something at the end.
Oh no, I mean it makes me want to go get a big bowl of ramen right now.
I know, right? I did this to myself the time we recorded the first time, and I had to go get ramen immediately. Um, done it to myself again, and, well, luckily, I'm so close to a ramen shop because, like we said, this movie has pushed us so much available to us in this wonderful Japanese cuisine that's a really awesome side effect of a wonderful movie. And you mentioned this being Criterion, and I have to say, like, I used to think that Criterion had a pretension level where like, ugh, somebody wants to talk to me about Criterion movies. But the more that I take the Criterion challenge and I watch a movie that I thought was gonna be stupid, damn it, they're so good at labeling good movies.
Hmm.
How do they know?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's easy to think that, but I do appreciate all the work Criterion does in getting people to see so many of these movies that they otherwise wouldn't.
Yeah.
And a lot of movies, even if there is some pretension to how lauded they are, do have a reason to be so highly regarded.
We talked about this in the episode I did
Ah,
about, Lord of the Rings, where if you have a fan base that gets aggressive because you've missed the movie,
Yeah.
you're gonna have more people miss the movie. If you approach people like, you didn't fucking see Lord of the Rings, it's classic. People don't want to watch that movie. No, that was a terrible way to go about it.
Yeah, no, my sentiment is, just nobody is Leonard Maltin. You haven't seen every movie ever. So, just people have blank spots, just let them discover at your recommendation or on their own.
Yeah, I get excited when I find out that somebody hasn't seen something that I
Yeah.
like, because then you can now get to experience and talk to me about it.
Exactly.
As a cinephile, I'm sure you get this, and as a filmmaker, I'm sure you get this. If anybody says the name of a movie to me and I say I haven't seen it, it's like blow up. They're just like, "Ah!" They're just like, "For Christ's
Yeah.
sake, you know that I watch like 6 movies a day. Like, you gotta they make 7 a day, so."
Exactly. Just I've seen more movies than I can count, but there's still plenty of ground to cover.
That can be both exhausting and both joyful,
Yeah.
to know that there's still regional versions of ramen I haven't tried yet
Hmm.
is a wonderful reason to stay alive and keep experiencing all the joy that it is to be human.
Well, certainly.
And the second question that I ask people is, would you recommend this film to other people?
Oh, I definitely would, especially now. Because again, I think my issue is that I didn't quite understand what Tampopo was,
Mm.
but now that I've seen it, now that I do, I know how to recommend it to people.
I had my husband text me the day after we had recorded part 1, and I had been talking to him about Tampopo. He has not seen it yet.
Oh.
And he's saying he's sitting down with his family of his mom in her 80s, his sister's wife, and his 12-year-old nephew. And he's like, "Hey, so I'm about to put Tampopo on." And I was like, "No, you're not. No, you're
Ooh,
not.
yeah, no.
No, you're
It's
going to
not a
put on
family film.
something else." Because, you do have to know your audience that you're recommending it to, because you know what it's about. And he had only heard that it's a, like, cute story about noodles. Ugh. So knowing what you're recommending is clutch in how you recommend it.
Oh, extremely so, especially with certain tags like with Tampopo that you would not expect.
Absolutely. Yes, there's a lot of sex in it, so don't, with your mom, watch this movie.
A lot of weird food sex.
Yeah, yeah. This is a friends but not family movie, if you will.
Yeah.
Alright, so we're wrapping this up, and I want to know if there's anything else, any final thoughts, anything you want to say before we close?
Life is short. Eat as much good food as you can, either homemade or at places you like to go to.
That's a great thought, and I think of that, and I think of the line from the film, to look lovingly at the pork and thank it for its service.
Oh yeah, that was a good line.
Yeah, this is a great film. So, if you're listening to this and you haven't seen it, I hope you are as hungry as both of us are right now.
Oh, very.
And in which case, get some soup, throw this movie on. It'll only make the soup taste that much more delicious.
人間ってさ、死ぬ間際にさ、短い映画みたいなの見るって言うじゃない。一生の出来事をさーっと走馬灯みたいにさ。その映画俺楽しみなんだよな。
And now time for corrections and omissions. What was the name of the movie where you follow a dollar bill around? I was slightly wrong here. It was a $20 bill? I did mention this in the second part, but I still need to correct it for the first part. Gotta keep myself honest here, right? Would you believe the film was called 20 Bucks? It's from 1993 and stars an ensemble cast of Linda Hunt, Brendan Fraser, Elizabeth Shue, Gladys Knight, and Steve Buscemi, just to name a few of the people in there. It is a story about the life of a $20 bill as it weaves in and out of the various lives of several people. I highly suggest that you check it out. It's only an hour and a half, and would you believe that it is free on Tubi? If you like that style of vignette filmmaking, definitely also check out the other film that I mentioned, the 1993 Night on Earth, and the 1995 Four Rooms, where each vignette is also a different director. The 4 directors for each room: Quentin Tarantino, Alexander Rockwell, Allison Anders, and Robert Rodriguez. Boy, we really had a thing for this style of storytelling in the mid-90s. And another correction, the first ramen shop in New York City to open was not called Rara-ken after the original name of Tampopo's shop. This is an IMDb trivia point that I wanted to double check, mostly for the spelling. It's phonetic. It is Raiken, but all one word. And I'm glad that I checked. I think this is simply the person getting a tad confused. As far as I was able to tell, the first ramen shop to open in New York City was in 1975, and it was called Sapporo, very similar spelling exactly to the beer that you're familiar with. Although it's a weird rabbit hole to try and Google, and if you go to certain websites, you'll see that David Chain's Momofuku will claim that they brought ramen to New York City in 2004, but again, I will mention the restaurant that was serving it in 1975. So they also invented chili crisp and sushi, I'm supposing. The first ramen shop to ever open in Japan was named Rara-ken. Obviously, I think this is Tampopo using that as a historical reference and naming Tampopo's first shop. Rara-ken is a nod to that. This one opened in 1910 in Tokyo's Asakusa neighborhood and was staffed by founder Kenichi Ozaki and a team of cooks recruited from Yokohama's Chinatown. I mean, ramen has its roots in Chinese cuisine after all, so that kind of makes sense. Rara-ken found very quick success in this time period. It served, I think, at its height, sometimes around 3,000 customers in a single day. Fun note, despite closing in 1976, after 44 years, Rara-ken is making a comeback. In 2020, as part of its mission to preserve and share the history of ramen, the Shin Yokohama Ramen Museum has been extensively researching Rara-ken with the help of Kenichi's grandson Kunio Takahashi and great-great-grandson Yusaku Takahashi. Through their combined efforts, including Kunio's first-hand experience of eating ramen at Rara-ken's original location, the museum has been able to determine the ingredients Kenichi used for his noodles and toppings, and has even deduced which type of currently available flour is the genetic descendant of the variety Rara-ken used when it opened. Jesus. They also now know the process by which Kenichi made his noodles and prepared the dish. And equipped with this information, a Rara-ken revival restaurant opened inside the museum, located in the city of Yokohama, which is about 25 minutes south of Tokyo. If you're in Yokohama, this is a mere 5 to 10 minute walk from the Shin Yokohama station. So if you're there, touch history, please go have some of that ramen and maybe watch this movie too. Do yourself a whole day of Tampopo. Jacob asked a really thought-provoking question in the second half when he asked, why did I think that the film and or the main character was named Tampopo, which is the Japanese word for dandelion? And I love the ideas that we came up with, but I was curious if there was a definitive answer from the writer-director Atami, or even just the filmmaking team itself. And maybe I wasn't able to find it through Googling, and maybe there's someone listening right now who knows that there is a specific answer from them, but I couldn't find anything online. I found a lot of people theorizing and coming up with basically the same ideas that Jacob and I came up with. Go us. Although there was one more idea that I found very compelling, and I did want to share it with you guys. That's the idea that the dandelion seed is spread through being blown into the wind. So therefore, it's not really too much of a stretch to see Atami's camera work at times as being like floating from scene to scene like a dandelion seed. I really like that idea. Fun tangent about the pronunciation of the transliteration for this film from Japanese kanji into English. Fun, I guess, if you're a linguistics nerd like myself. But here we're going to do a little language lesson. And I know, maybe I'm the only kind of person who has fondness for this, but this is my show, so here we go. The accepted transliteration for the movie title from katakana, which is the way the title is written in Japanese, is Tampopo. However, those of you with experience in the language may notice that the second kanji can be an M, or it can be written as an N when you transliterate it. So sometimes somebody might want to pronounce this as Tampopo. And this is due to a pronunciation peculiarity in Japanese for that second kanji that you see there when it's written in katakana. Usually it is pronounced as an N, such as at the end of the word Nihon, but you pronounce it as an M when it comes next to a consonant pronounced with the lips initially put together, like a P, as within the word Tampopo. So there you go. Just a little interesting curiosity for you. So if you hear someone pronouncing it Tampopo, they might be reading the katakana and not just be familiar with the total fact that this is called Tampopo. That is the correct way to say it. And now you have some linguistic nerdery to lean back on when pronouncing this title. What is the condition of working oneself to death in Japan called? The exhausted woman who is married to the running man is suffering from karoshi, which means worked to death. Many people suffer from this in Japan, and many more die from this condition. In fact, according to Statistica, 2,968 people in Japan died from karoshi in 2023, which is up from 1,935 in 2021. Karoshi is a well-known phenomenon in Japan, and it can be caused by physical pressure on mental stress from the workplace or school or family life. The most common medical cause for karoshi deaths are heart attacks and strokes due to stress and malnourishment or fasting. Mental stress can also cause workers to commit suicide, which is known as korojisatsu, or overwork suicide in Japan. Even though we don't have a specific word for it in the United States, suicide caused by stress is still something that we absolutely experience. If you or a loved one are suffering, please don't hesitate to reach out. In fact, we have a very easy 3-digit number in the United States that you can call. Dial 988 and you will get the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. You can also text them to chat with them. The 988 Lifeline provides 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week free and confidential support to people in distress. Prevention and crisis resources are available for you and your loved ones. Please reach out to them today. I mentioned a John Malkovich film being in a time capsule that was for a company as a commercial, but neither Jacob or I could really remember any additional details. The film is called 100 Years. It's an upcoming experimental science fiction film written by and starring John Malkovich. It's directed by Robert Rodriguez. It's produced by the French liqueur company Remy Martin to promote Louis XIII, their cognac that takes 100 years to create. Advertised in 2015 with the tagline, "The movie you will never see." God, that's so fucking pretentious. It's due to be released on November 18th, 2115. While the details of the film have been kept highly secret, the names of 3 actors have been released. American actor John Malkovich, obviously, Chinese actress Xua Cheng, and Chilean actor Marco Zaror. 100 Years is apparently a short film. Rodriguez said in a 2019 interview, quote, "I was making several short films for them, and I finished that one first. We shot that one first. I thought that was going to be a commercial or something. And then I showed them the movie and they said, yeah, that's great. That's great. That's the one we'll lock away." And I said, what? That's the one you will lock away? What about the other one with the future? No, that's the commercial. Although the film's plot remains a complete secret, on November 18th, 2015, Malkovich and Rodriguez released 3 teaser trailers titled Retro, Nature, and Future. You'll find links to these on my YouTube channel, Movie Runtime, under the playlist titled Mentioned in an Episode of What If I Don't Like It. I spoke a little bit about the history of food in cinema, and I just wanted to provide a more concise linear timeline for its initial use in both European and American cinema. The first ever film to show someone eating anything was the 1895 La Repast du Bébé by the Brothers Lumière, or The Repast of the Baby. This shows Auguste Lumiere's wife feeding their infant. Now here's a super fun tangential fact. I thought that the description of this film on the article mentioning it did a shite job because it didn't list the wife's name. She obviously has a name, right? However, after much attempting to find this, and even noting that despite being credited on 11 Lumiere brother films that are listed on IMDb, she is always listed as, quote, self/Miss Auguste Lumiere. What fresh hell. The first fully narrative film to feature food and its power on us was the 1904 French silent film Saucier Culinaire by Georges Méliès. It's about a chef who makes food that's so delicious that it attracts a homeless person from the outside. Extra trivia here. Méliès used food in a lot of his films, and in fact, his 1907 Mr. Flip is the first film to use a pie-in-the-face gag. And of course, the first bit of American cinema to narratively use food in film is the Gold Rush, 1925, Charlie Chaplin, when he makes a soup trying to use his shoe. I'm going to fast forward hard for just one more food and film fact for all of you before I end the corrections and omissions portion of this episode. Did you know that McDonald's Happy Meals have always centered around a film release from their initial inception? Well, you may not find that hard to believe, but you will be a bit shocked to find out that the first film used on its national launch of the Happy Meal was Star Trek, the motion picture. If you've seen the movie, you know it's not exactly a children's movie. I mean, unless you're the kind of kid that really enjoys deep, heady sci-fi movies about astronauts slowly exploring space and clouds, I guess. But the Star Trek brand was really very hot in the 1970s, so thanks to years of syndicated runs and reruns and the animated series, with the big budget movie in theaters, it actually made for a pretty perfect Happy Meal subject. The original Star Trek Happy Meal included comics and games, plus a plastic communicator toy. There was no food that was themed with the movie, though. That doesn't happen until much, much later on. But the success of the Star Trek Happy Meal ensured that movies and fast food would be linked for decades to come. If that was an interesting article for you, you can read more by going to Screen Crush. They have a brief history of the movie tie-in for food, and I'll include that link in the liner notes. And that's all for episode 15 with Jacob Davison on the 1985 Japanese comedy western Tampopo. I hope that you enjoyed the conversation, and if you haven't seen this film, I really do hope that you go and watch it. And I hope that, at the very least, we haven't made you unbearably hungry, because I swear to God, doing these 2 recordings and doing the multiple edits on this piece, I have made myself eat made. I have allowed myself to eat so much soup, and it has been wonderful, so I hope that we can at least give that gift to you. Again, quick reminder, you can catch Jacob on his own podcasts, Eye on Horror with ihorror.com and the Hallo-Rewind Podcast. Both of those are available on Apple and Spotify, and you're going to find those links in the liner notes. You can go to his YouTube channel, Matinee 5 Productions. You can see Living Wake 8, The Blue Swatting of the Mahogany Fly, so much more. That's how you're going to see the short films that he's writing and directing and working on that we talked about on this episode as well. You can follow him on Instagram, Twitter or X, Letterboxd as well. He's part of the Just Scare Me collective. He works at the American Cinematheque. All of these links are going to be in the liner notes. You can get involved in all of this stuff. I, of course, am movie runtime, and that's going to be on TikTok, on YouTube, on Letterboxd. But on Instagram, no, it's not going to be that. It's going to be Little Deadly Creature. But if you type in movie runtime, you'll find my backup account, and you'll see movie runtime is also listed in my title of my name because I know that I'm using that handle a lot. But Little Deadly Creature is my Instagram handle. It has been for a long time, and it so shall stay. Please take a moment to watch the newest short film that I've made. It's my first comedic piece. It's only 5 minutes. You can see it on my YouTube channel, again, at Movie Runtime. It's called We Have Ghosts at Home, and it is a very comedic take at the concept of wanting something that you very much already have at home. Even though you have perfectly good ghosts at home, you might be seeking ghosts out elsewhere. I will be on Movie Night Extravaganza this coming Friday, that's the 5th, to discuss the currently released Yorgos Lanthimos film Kinds of Kindness, starring Emma Stone and Willem Dafoe. This is a special Friday edition. Again, that's because it's got Renee Ruin of the Night Shift podcast. It's going to be fun. Day after the 4th of July. Hang out with us. Chime in on the live chats on YouTube. Or listen to it archived if you're too worn out, too blown out from having partied. But maybe you have the day off. Most people might get the day off because the day before was a holiday. I'll be on Movie Runtime again for a special Friday with Renee Ruin, August 2nd. This time we're going to talk about Lord of the Rings. All 3 films in our one episode. They'll be having someone who worked at the Wella Studios on before us, the Tuesday before us, to talk about the film's technical aspect, all 3 of them, and then we'll be talking more about the narrative aspect of it as film goers. So much fun. Super excited about that one. I will have to be held back from constantly being like, no trivia. In the books, actually. They'll just have to cut my mic. It'll be glorious. As always, you can watch my 35-minute-long body horror short film that is an allegory for anorexia called Girl in the Basement. Oh my god, would it be on my YouTube channel? What is the name of my YouTube channel? I'm not even saying it at this point. We're just moving on. I do recommend that you check out that article I just mentioned at the end of the corrections and omissions. It was super, super fascinating, and that's a brief history of movie tie-in food. That's all I'm going to say for now. It's been glorious. Thank you for staying to the end. Anybody who makes it to this point, your karma points increase exponentially.
This has been What If I Don't Like It with your host, Katie Baldessaro. See you later, Space Cowboy.